Welcome to today's main news on Loyola Television. To present it, I'm Clement Mwanza. The headlines. An economist says the public debt distress coupled with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic remain a challenge for a developing economy like Zambia. Owners of bars, nightclubs and casinos will have to notify the local authorities in writing by outlining measures put in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. A government official in Tanzania has been giving details about a fire which swept through a school dormitory, burning to death 10 children. The Constitutional Court in Ivory Coast has barred the former president, Laurent Gbagbo, and former Prime Minister Guillaume Soro from running in the presidential election next month. And now the details. The public debt distress coupled with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic remain a challenge for a developing economy like Zambia. Currently, the economic emergencies the country is facing come against a backdrop of high indebtedness. Trevor Hambai, an economist, has told Loyola News in an exclusive interview that government needs to come up with a workable debt repayment strategy in order to reduce the country's expenditure.
Because of where the country is in terms of the economy, is that we are financially distressed. Our fiscal position is very weak. One of the things that must happen is that we need to reduce our expenditure because we have borrowed more than we need. So the first budget expectation is that we must validate these pronouncements that we've been talking about, which speak to austerity, which is meaning that we have to reduce our expenditure. So if our budget was 106 billion last year, we expect that this budget must reduce. And that is the budget expectation that will speak to us having to take the right direction. The second aspect is that we needed to be able to put a stimulus package, which is put a lot more resources in trying to develop the private sector to invest in the economy, because that increase in the private sector is the one that is going to generate additional growth in the economy, which allows government to be able to collect taxes to support the operations of the government.
Meanwhile, Mr. Hambai says the newly discovered gold reserves need to be owned by Zambians in order to keep the revenue generated in the country. He says this move will improve the country's reserves, reduce the rapid depreciation of the kwacha, and stabilize the economy.
But for this to happen is that we need to have a fund that supports these miners who are local to be able to invest into those mines, which is what is the usual problem, that the mines that we have, the local Zambians do not have the resources to be able to invest there. So as a country, we had needed to create an empowerment fund that is specifically designed towards having to support the miners that are going to work towards to do this, and then the resources will remain in the country.
The Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection says Zambia needs to diversify its economy in order to form a cornerstone towards economic recovery. The organization has welcomed the president's pronouncement during the official opening of the 5th session of the 12th National Assembly to diversify the country's economy to ensure stability. Innocent Ndashe, the JCTR programs manager, says Zambia must acknowledge the need for diversification to form a cornerstone on economic development so as to strengthen the country's economy. Mr. Ndashe adds that President Edgar Lungu should have clarified the challenges faced across different economic sectors and the government's interventions aimed at supporting the country's growth. He was speaking in an interview with Loyola News in Lusaka today.
But possibly what then would have been helpful, particularly to the Minister of Finance as he's looking forward to present the budget, would have been to give an idea of how various sectors would have performed. For example, the multi-economic section or the economic zones that government has been actually formulating. I think we have a number of facilities that have been created in Lusaka and a few other areas. So you'd want to check how are the economic facilities contributing, for example, to job creation and a few other areas.
There has been calls for Zambians to embrace locally produced goods to allow for money to circulate within the country and contribute to economic development. Evas Ngoma, the Buy Zambia campaign founder, is impressed with the number of Zambians that are opting to buy locally produced goods. Mr. Ngoma is particularly happy that President Edgar Lungu, in his address to the 5th session of the 12th National Assembly, called on all Zambians to support locally produced goods.
Because you see, the borders have been closed for some time now. trade is not flowing as normal as it used to be. And so it is our appeal again to the people to begin to appreciate and buy that which is made in Zambia. Also to the producers of various goods and services, all we are saying is let's up our game, let's be competitive, let's seize this opportunity and ensure that we deliver value for money services to the people out there. Let's tell the people that yes, you have the product you can rely on, not on foreign. And also I would like to thank the head of state, His Excellency Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu, on his continued appeal to the people to prefer that which is made in Zambia.
Mr. Ngoma was speaking in an interview with Loyola News in Lusaka. Owners of bars, nightclubs and casinos will have to notify the local authorities in writing by outlining measures put in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And officials from the local councils will be mandated to conduct inspections for conformity of COVID-19 guidelines as stipulated by the Ministry of Health. Charles Banda, the local government minister, was speaking at a press briefing in Lusaka today.
Proprietors will notify the local authorities in writing of intent to resume partial operations and outline measures to put in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Remember, I'm saying local authorities. I'm speaking to all local authorities throughout the country and proprietors of such facilities throughout the country. It will be uniform. We're not going to have regulations for individual councils different from the others. The second one will be that an inspection will be conducted by the public health inspectors to verify that the proposed measures are being adhered to. Our officers from the councils throughout will visit these facilities time and again to ensure that the proprietors do adhere to those measures which have been given to us through the Ministry of Health.
The local government minister says the proprietors of the establishments are advised to follow the provisions of Statutory Instrument Number 22 of 2020, the Public Health Regulations and the Liquor Licensing Act Number 20 of 2011. We now take a break, but still to come. Zambia records a 90% recovery rate since the first cases of COVID-19 were recorded in March. Paramount Chief Chitimukulu declines to meet opposition UPND leader. These and many more stories, stay with us.
May we use these trying moments to rise to something that's important. Take life not for granted. Tell someone that you love them. If any of you have any COVID-19 symptoms, which are a fever of above 38 degrees Celsius, a cough, difficulty in breathing, shortness of breath, or chest pains, please do not hesitate to call 909 or 0974 49 35 53, and medical assistance will come your way. We hope for the better and leave everything in the hands of God. Together, we can combat COVID-19. Please stay at home for me. I stayed at work for you. Be that change.
Please do your best to stay at home. If you must leave your home, please remember to mask up. Keep social distancing of at least 1 meter and wash your hands often with soap and running water or any alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Habib, where do you think you're going?
Stay out of my way. I'm going to play football with my friends, and there's nothing you can't...
Silence! You think this is funny, eh? You can get the deadly coronavirus.
The gorilla virus?
No, the coronavirus. Do you know what will happen when you do? Do you?
Huh, what will happen?
You will bring the coronavirus home and then infect everyone. Mommy will be sick, no more jollof rice.
Huh?
Daddy will be sick, no more going out to see movies.
Oh no, not the movies, no!
Even worse, the government will come and take Mommy and Daddy away.
Ah, you're just making it up.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
See for yourself.
It's real! It's real! What should we do?
The coronavirus is out there. We should stay at home for now. Always wash our hands with soap and water so we can prevent it from spreading.
Boo!
Stay home, stay safe from all of us at Ant Hill Studios.
We continue with the news. Zambia has today recorded a 90% recovery rate since the first cases of COVID-19 were recorded in March. The Ministry of Health says 12,990 individuals have recovered out of a cumulative total of 13,819 cases recorded since March. Kennedy Malama, the Permanent Secretary in charge of Technical Services, was updating the nation on the COVID-19 pandemic. But Dr. Malama has warned that despite the high rate of recovery, the public should not relent in the fight against the virus, but strictly adhere to all the health guidelines. He emphasized on the need for members of the public to present themselves to treatment centers as soon as they notice symptoms associated with the virus. Meanwhile, the country has in the last 24 hours recorded 2 deaths, bringing the cumulative number to 324. Dr. Malama says 1 death was recorded at Levi Mwanawasa Isolation Center and the other at Kitwe Teaching Hospital, involving male adults with underlying health conditions. The country has also recorded 99 new cases out of 747 tests conducted. 3 hosts of festivals have been cautioned out of the 26 who were inspected for non-adherence to COVID-19 health guidelines. The hosts of the festivals in Loyola did not adhere to measures such as physical distancing, proper sanitation, waste management, and disinfection. Rebecca Mushota, the new public relations manager at the Loyola City Council, has told Loyola News that the hosts of the festivals have since been given recommendations on how to adhere to the guidelines.
The Loyola City Council has cautioned 8 bars and nightclubs for operating beyond the stipulated time in accordance with the presidential directives. The warning was issued after the Council's Public Health Department conducted a night operation to check compliance on Friday night from 23:30 hours to Saturday around 02 hours. The operation was undertaken to check on compliance with the new presidential directives that bars, taverns, and nightclubs may operate from 18 hours to 23 hours on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. The premises found operating beyond the stipulated time were issued with a warning notice. If the same premises are found operating beyond the stipulated time in the near future, legal action would be taken against them.
The operation was conducted to check on compliance with the new presidential directives that bars, nightclubs, and casinos may operate from 18 hours to 23 hours on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Mwine Lubemba Paramount Chief Chitimukulu Kanyanta Mangasosala II says he declined to meet UPND President Hakainde Hichilema because his alliance partner James Lukulu insulted him. The traditional leader says Mr. Hichilema refused to distance himself from the insults unleashed by Mr. Lukulu. He says traditional leaders must be impartial but work with the government of the day. The Paramount Chief was speaking when President Edgar Lungu paid a courtesy call on him today at his palace in Mungwi District, Northern Province.
So even here I receive every evening. Yesterday I received Mr. Chand, I think he was a PPP or something like that. I always receive even Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, but this time I declined because as opposition alliance, they had issued a statement against me saying the members are being ruled by a misplaced and wrong chief. And they failed to, HH failed to distance himself, whereas the Honorable Gamble distanced himself from that statement, which was issued by the chairperson, Lukuku. So when they wanted to make an appointment, I refused on the ground that I'm misplaced and wrong chief. So I can't deal with right people when I'm wrong person. So on that ground, I refused to receive Mr. Hakainde.
The Foreign Affairs Ministry is considering engaging the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, on the possibilities of creating a platform on which Zambians living abroad can cast their vote in next year's tripartite elections. Ambassador Chalwe Lombe, the permanent secretary who is in charge of international relations and cooperation, states that creating a platform to have Zambians abroad vote is important. Ambassador Lombe said this during the African Mission's virtual meeting on the diaspora policy. He encouraged missions abroad to make submissions in order to engage relevant institutions with a view of putting up measures in place. Meanwhile, Ambassador Lombe says Zambian missions play a critical role in the successful implementation of the diaspora policy. The remains of a popular good luck fish that died 2 weeks ago, sending Zambians into mourning, are being stitched together after they were found cut into pieces at the residence of a worker at the Copperbelt University CBU in Kitwe. The breamfish, affectionately known as mafishi, was a resident of the university's pond. Its death led to students lighting candles and marching on the campus to mourn its death. President Edgar Lungu and other politicians joined in mourning the fish. Students say they wanted to embalm it, but last week the fish went missing from the freezer where it was kept following its death. The university management launched an investigation and the fish was found in a refrigerator at the home of a worker. Its scales had been removed and it had been cut into pieces, presumably to be cooked and eaten. CBU Vice Chancellor Professor Nyson Ngoma has told Loyola News that mafishi's remains were now being worked on for preservation. Mafishi, meaning big fish in the local Bemba language, was thought to be at least 22 years old and had lived in the university's pond for more than 20 years. Some students used to play homage to the fish before exams, believing it brought good luck, while others saw it as a stress reliever. We take our second break, and coming up, a proposed law giving Boris Johnson's government the power to override parts of the Brexit withdrawal agreement with the EU has passed its first hurdle in the House of Commons. Paris Saint-Germain will strongly support their Brazilian playmaker Neymar after he said he was racially abused by Marseille's defender Alvaro Gonzalez. These and many other stories coming up. Don't go away.
Habib, where do you think you're going?
Stay out of my way. I'm going to play football with my friends, and there's nothing you can't.
Silence! You think this is funny, eh? You can get the deadly coronavirus.
The gorilla virus?
No, the coronavirus. Do you know what will happen when you do? Do you?
Huh? What will happen?
You will bring the coronavirus home and then infect everyone. Mommy will be sick, no more jollof rice.
Huh?
Daddy will be sick, no more going out to see movies.
Oh no! Not the movies, no!
Even worse, the government will come and take Mommy and Daddy away.
Ah, you're just making it up.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
See for yourself.
Okay, it's real. It's real. What should we do?
The coronavirus is out there. We should stay at home for now. Always wash our hands with soap and water so we can prevent it from spreading.
Boo!
Stay home, stay safe from all of us at Anthill Studios.
Coronavirus disease, COVID-19 pandemic, has upended lives of children and their families. While the health sector buckles, borders closed, businesses and schools shutter. As COVID-19 spreads, so was misinformation, fueling discrimination and stigma. Let's promote facts over fear. Let's bring out the trustworthy guidance to our parents, caregivers, and educators. Despite what you might think or feel, we are not your enemy. We're asking you to stop, be still, to listen. I stayed at work for you. Please, please, stay home. Be the change.
Please do your best to stay at home. If you must leave your home, please remember to mask up. Keep social distancing of at least 1 meter and wash your hands often with soap and running water or any alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Welcome back, and now international news. A government official in Tanzania's northwestern Kagera region has been giving details about a fire which swept through a school dormitory in the early hours of Monday, burning to death 10 children. Regional Commissioner Marco Gaguti has told Reuters news agency that the dormitory was housing 74 pupils, and when it caught fire, the pupils started fleeing, but due to the impact of the fire, some couldn't make it out on time. The cause of the fire at the Byamunga English Medium Primary School has not yet been established. The fire gutted one of the dormitories at Byamunga English Medium Primary School in Itera village. Bamaraka Mahmoud, the village chairman, said villagers struggled to put out the fire and rescuers dug through the rubber and bent iron sheets to find the bodies. The Constitutional Court in Ivory Coast has barred former President Laurent Gbagbo and former Prime Minister Guillaume Soro from running in the presidential election next month. The Electoral Commission had already said that anyone with a criminal record would be disqualified. Both men have convictions. Earlier, protests broke out in several cities over President Alassane Ouattara's decision to run for a third term, something the Ivorian constitution prohibits. 15 people have died in violence since he said last month that he would stand again. He took the decision after his hand-picked successor died suddenly in July. The man portrayed as a hero in Hollywood movie about the Rwandan genocide has been charged with terrorism, murder, and other crimes. Paul Rusesabagina declined to enter any pleas in court, but his lawyers denied the charges against him. Mr. Rusesabagina is the leader of the opposition MRCD group, which is said to have an armed wing, the FLN, which stages attacks on Rwanda. He was brought to the court under heavy security in Rwanda's capital, Kigali. Mr. Rusesabagina is a fierce critic of President Paul Kagame and had been living abroad. An ethnic Hutu, he became well known after the 2004 film Hotel Rwanda depicted his efforts a decade earlier during the genocide to save hundreds of Tutsis at a hotel where he was manager. Rwandan officials say Mr. Rusesabagina, 66, was arrested under an international warrant for leading terrorist movements. Mr. Rusesabagina's name featured recently in a terrorism case in Rwanda. The US President Donald Trump has vowed a response that would be 1,000 times greater in magnitude to any attack by Iran. This is after reports that Iran was plotting to kill the US ambassador to South Africa, Lana Marks. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson has dismissed the report on the planned assassination that was first reported by Politico. It reported that Iran was planning to assassinate the US ambassador, a long-term friend of President Trump, in retaliation for the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani in January. General Soleimani was killed in a US drone strike on an airport in Baghdad in January. A proposed law giving Boris Johnson's government the power to override parts of the Brexit agreement withdrawal with the EU has passed its first hurdle in the House of Commons. MPs backed the internal market bill by 340 votes to 263. Ministers says it contains vital safeguards to protect Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK if negotiations on a future trade deal break down. But critics, including a number of Tory MPs, warned it risked damaging the UK by breaching international law. Although the government has a majority of 80 in the Commons, it is braced for rebellious in the coming weeks as the legislation receives detailed scrutiny. Several prominent conservatives, including former Chancellor Sajid Javid, have said they could not support the final bill unless it is amended, with a number of expected to have abstained in Monday's vote. A woman has said she is worried she will never get back to her normal self months after catching the coronavirus. Jade Townsend, 22, was active and sociable before spending just one night in a hospital after contracting COVID-19. But she said she can no longer wake and suffers chronic fatigue, fevers, nausea, and a fluctuating fast heart rate. Researchers studying long-term effects of the virus said they hoped to prevent a cycle of illness where the symptoms continue. Many coronavirus patients have reported debilitating symptoms continuing months after falling ill, which can include breathlessness, chronic fatigue, and brain fog. Dr. Rachel Evans from the University of Leicester has worked on a UK-wide investigation into the long-term effects of COVID-19 for patients admitted to hospital. The National Association of Media Arts is to award artists in recognition of their bravery despite the COVID-19 pandemic. The awards aim at encouraging the artists for continuity in creating content during this outbreak of the pandemic. Lotis Yame, the National Association for Media President, has told Loyola News that the awards will be given out next month.
Because of the COVID-19, a few people have been producing, some have been affected completely. Therefore, as an association, we've come up with another initiative where we are going to hold the recognition awards for the second edition, because we had the first one last year. But this time around, we know we'd love to have the ZAFTAs, but looking at how the year has been, it's not possible for us to have the ZAFTA awards. Therefore, we've decided to have a recognition award where we are going to recognize each and everyone who's braved the COVID-19 to go out there and produce. These artists who've continued entertaining us in our homes as we follow the guidelines on COVID-19. So the awards will be held in November at Mlungushi Conference Center, and details will be given to our members soon.
And in sports, Paris Saint-Germain say they will strongly support their Brazilian playmaker Neymar after he said he was racially abused by Marseille defender Álvaro Gonzalez. Neymar was the last of 5 red cards in Sunday's bad-tempered Ligue 1 match sent off for hitting Gonzalez. On Twitter, Neymar accused his opponent of racism and urged the authorities to use VAR to clarify matters. Marseille had made a statement saying Gonzalez is not racist. PSG said there was no place for racism in society, football, or any in our lives. In a short statement issued on Monday, the French champions say the club looks forward to French governing body, the LFP's disciplinary commission, investigating and asserting the facts. Marseille's statement said Álvaro Gonzalez is not racist. He demonstrated it to us by his daily behavior since joining the club, as his teammates have already testified. The statement warned of the serious consequences of the private telephone numbers of Gonzalez and his relatives being released on Brazilian media and social networks, which had led to constant harassment, consisting in particular of death threats. Neymar and teammates Leandro Paredes and Leven Kuzawa, plus Marseille pair Jordan Amavi and Dario Benedetto, were dismissed after trouble broke out in added time following a shove by Paredes on Benedetto. That sporting item brings us to the end of our news, but before we go, here's a look at the main stories once again. The public debt distress, coupled with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, remain a challenge for a developing economy like Zambia. Currently, the economic emergencies that the country is facing come against a backdrop of high indebtedness. Trevor Hambai, an economist, has told Loyola News in an exclusive interview that government needs to come up with a workable debt repayment strategy. Owners of bars, nightclubs, and casinos will have to notify local authorities in writing about the measures they have put in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And officials from the local councils will be mandated to conduct inspections for conformity of COVID-19 guidelines as stipulated by the Ministry of Health. Charles Banda, the local government minister, was speaking at a press briefing in Lusaka today. A government official in Tanzania's northwestern Kagera region has been giving details about a fire which swept through a school dormitory in the early hours of Monday, burning to death 10 children. Regional Commissioner Marco Gaguti has told Reuters news agency that the dormitory was housing 74 students, and when it caught fire, the pupils started fleeing, but due to the impact of the fire, some couldn't make it out on time. The Constitutional Court in Ivory Coast has barred the former president, Laurent Gbagbo, and former Prime Minister, Goileme Soro, from running in the general elections next month. The Electoral Commission had already said that anyone with a criminal record will be disqualified. Both men have convictions. And on that note, we have come to the end of the news. On behalf of the entire production and news crew, my name is Clement Mwanza. Good night and God bless.